Hello and welcome. It's Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF. I'm Guy, and that's John. We are live on YouTube or available to you whenever you want on YouTube and in the podcast feed. Glad you're here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, and on the podcast feed, share that as well with your friends. You can see links to all our shows down in the descriptions below. What do you got?
What a lie. Florio's name sounds like Oreo. Hard to take him seriously. That's a great line.
There's two. That's a comment. There's two Mike Florios, because on NFL Network the other night, I was watching, they had Eagles-Niners on again, and on the bottom line it said, join Marcus Grant, Fresno, no Marcus, join Marcus Grant and like Michael P. Florio for a fantasy breakdown, blah, 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 blah. Are you aware of that? Did you know that?
No, didn't know.
I think I'd have to go Mikey. It's tough because you're like, why does he get my name? That's my name. You know what I mean?
Marcus Grant played at Fresno or worked in the market?
No. Marcus Grant did radio in Fresno back in the day.
Okay. Gotcha.
Just wanted to name drop him. But like, what do you do in that?
Former dog.
Ravens broadcaster Jerry Sandusky, spelled with a G.
That's to me infinitely worse than the Florio problem.
Yeah, it's not even that bad. The Florio's one's not bad. It's just whatever.
I think Jerry Sandusky had to have some real talks. You know, he was older even when the thing went down, but with family members, brothers, sisters, if we change our name, like full on, just, you know, like an actor. A lot of radio personalities that when I started working in the business found out that people did that. I didn't know that was. I knew actors in Hollywood, but you know, John MIDDLEKAUFF.
Haberman's not I made up the name Haberman just for broadcasting.
Yeah. Well, I'd be like Johnny Silver. That'd be my name, Johnny Silver.
You know what mine would be? I thought about this.
What?
Like Bull, but I'd be Guy.
Well, you never forget that.
Is that good or what? I honestly, if I had thought of that in 2003, I'd have done it.
That's pretty good. Guy.
Good, right? Guy. Yeah.
It's not a bad idea.
I know. It's pretty good. John, we are sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka. Tito's Handmade Vodka, a toast. I have a Tito's toast today, John.
Same.
I have a Tito's toast that's actually not sarcastic. A rare, heartfelt Tito's toast. What do you get when Ricky Watters, John MIDDLEKAUFF, and Guy Haberman walk into a Hooters in 2015 for an NFL draft show? You get me hating the Niners pick. They took Eric Armstead with the 17th overall pick that year. I watched this video today. I don't know if you saw this. Schrager tweeted it. I think the Niners posted it. Did you see this video?
You stole my fucking cheers. I was going to go down this road.
Oh, well, good. You can talk about it too then. That's how you know it's a good Tito's toast, a good cheers, because we both had it. I think I saw Chris Kasarik cry. Eric Armstead is the Niners Man of the Year award nominee for the 4th straight year. He's the longest tenured Niner. When they drafted him 17th overall in 2015, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think I said like they just drafted a basketball player, which he was also. But it turns
literally
out
was played.
His dad's like a big time like basketball guy.
Didn't he play a little bit at Oregon?
I think he played at Oregon briefly. Yep.
Yeah.
He's in his 9th year on the team, the longest tenured player on the team. He's made $85 million. He's scheduled to make $18 million next year in the last year of his deal. Clearly, he's a very good player, first of all. Like, I think sometimes when we talk about him, we say, well, he probably shouldn't be making almost $20 million a year, but he's still an excellent player. But when you go back and just look at the pick, it's one of the best picks of that first round. There's only 4 players from the 2015 draft in the first round still with the teams that drafted him. Andres Pete, DJ Humphries, Shaq Thompson, Eric Armstead, who went after Andres Pete and before DJ Humphries. Those are the 4. And to see the impact, just watching that video, for people who didn't see it, it's like the Niners had some of his teammates film messages to him about how much they love him. And it was very moving. He was crying at the end of it. I teared up. I cry easily, but I teared up. And it might be really hard just to measure how valuable that guy's been to the franchise while also being one of the best players on their defensive line.
Well, one thing I learned when I was with the Eagles is there are guys internally who mean more to you if they're not like the version of your Trent Williams, right? Or your Micah Parsons or your whoever said player that is your best player, right? It's easy. Anyone, my mom can watch the Bengals play and watch Jamar Chase. And it doesn't matter whether he's their team captain or not, right? You need that guy. He's never going anywhere. As long as he plays at a high level, he's your guy. And then there's like that next tier of player who's your starter, especially if you're a good team, but whose intangibles is like the heartbeat of the team. Not on the field, but there is a level in which Randy Gregory, who's been on the team for fucking a minute, the way he talked about him immediately, and he's a guy. Look at the people that talked in that video: Randy Gregory and Javon Kinlaw. And Kinlaw, whoever was doing the interview, was clearly in tears after Javon. And clearly, the thing that I thought about was the incident with Grant, which, end of the day was pretty just. The whole thing was just a kind of a debacle. I didn't necessarily blame Kinlaw because if you put yourself in his shoes, like, shut the fuck up, and it's just you're going through rough times. And Eric is just someone who clearly impacts young players. And I think, for a long time, Jimmy Ward did that as well. And I think he's doing it right now with the Texans. He just no longer, last year it's like Kyle kind of benched him as a player. So once that happens, your impact as a leader. But did you watch like last week, that game-winning pick? There's like that level of guy. Now, Jimmy makes less than Eric, but whoever that guy is on every team who's not, quote-unquote, their best player, the coach and the general manager, your team operates in a big piece because of that guy. Even Bosa, the way he's looked up to him. And I'm with you. I actually think he's got a pretty good chance to win it, you have enough bites of the apple. You're one of the big, on a big name team. The impact that he makes, he also is pretty unique, right? That his impact, and listen, just because you're from an area or not from an area, it doesn't mean your impact can't be felt wide and far, right? Like Larry Fitzgerald's not from Arizona. He's like the fucking mayor of Arizona with charity work and everything, or whoever is, Jason Kelsey with the Eagles. He's not from there. But being from Sacramento, and I do think it hits a little different, at least if you're a Niner fan. But it would not shock me. I think, I watched this clip the Eagles put, or maybe NFL Network put out, and Jason Kelsey was talking, Lane Johnson is their guy. And he's like, so often a lot of these nominees is because you just give a lot of money, right? But it's very public. And I think a lot of times, he's like the impact that people make when it's not that way, but everyone around them knows and the community knows is infinitely more powerful when you're truly doing it for the right reasons. And you're not like, to me, Eric Armstead is not some pound in his chest telling you what he's doing. Right. And I even think it's cool, like putting out his, like the financial stuff he's been doing, showing that like, I'm a 50-50 fucking shareholder with the government. And I think that's like, that takes being very secure in yourself, because a lot of people are like, oh, rich guy complaining, it's just your classic lowbrow Twitter fucking booger eater. But I'm with you, blown away. Never would have thought. And honestly, every time I see him, I'm like, what a high level cat. And honestly, that video made me think, and Jason Kelsey's video made me think. And I'm sure if we went to a lot of the good teams, you read the article about David Tepper and the Hunger Games or all these franchises that fall apart. It's so easy to see why 4 or 5 teams beat the shit out of everyone else. It's just not that complicated. Like that video is just like a high level company or something. And then you see like David Tepper telling Josh McCown to work on football. It's just like, what? The gap between the haves and the have-nots, it's like society, is really, really wide, And I think that video was an eye-opener to the 49ers culture and why clearly they've, been one of the key franchises in the league winning-wise in the last 5 years.
Do him and Chase Young? Chase Young was in the video. When I saw Chase Young,
showed up like last week.
I was like, damn.
You do spend
in the video. Bosa in the video.
Bosa's been there now. Whatever,
I understand. I'm just saying, like when Nick Bosa says, I look up to you, that's a significant thing.
You spend a lot of time with people in your position group.
Yeah.
Right? You just spend, I would imagine as a football player, you spend more time with your position group than you do with your significant other, your family, during the 6 months of the football season, start to finish. And it probably might not even be close. And the D-line as well. Like when Wilkes was saying that, and you see Kasirki like sits in the middle of the group. He's just in there, which I mean is normal, but just they got a pretty good. That's a high level defensive group, and let's face it, defensive groups sometimes you got a couple crazies. Like they don't really. They got pretty normal dudes, like very high level. Just very thoughtful individuals.
Yep. Playing a violent position. Keeping the faith. A comment on the YouTube says the whole Armstead family is so respected in the Sac Elk Grove area. They couldn't be nicer people. I thought of Jamal Adams when I was watching that video too. Like, from a style of play standpoint, plays like Niners play. But watching what he's done this last week, I don't know if he'd fit in the room. Maybe he could use it.
But I think a lot of good teams would not mess with him. Too big of a wild card.
Yeah.
Like I bet if you just asked like the Chiefs, the Eagles, you just went around, not even factoring money. They're like, And as a player, he's extremely flawed.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, Armstead, wrong about that pick. I was.
What was clear about 5 years when he was not still on
it was
the team.
clear pretty quickly he was a good enough player, but like that he would become.
He got better as he got older.
He's just become a franchise centerpiece. Yeah, you're right. He did get better as he got older. They lost Buckner, and he kind of, it's been partly on him. So
I think him and Jimmy Ward are good examples of like, two of the last bulky picks, right, that were on the team that are obviously I'm pretty sure Eric's probably the last, but him and Jimmy that lasted all of Kyle's tenure. Eric still going. We'll see. This is a business, so things get complicated, but it's pretty clear. Like, I don't think he's going anywhere, but I don't know if they can afford to pay him because this offseason would be like when you do a contract extension, right?
Right.
He's injured. It's these things get complicated and they get very emotional. But I mean, I'm not saying by any, like, if I was a betting man, he's on the team next year, but it'll be an interesting offseason with a couple, like Ayuk and Armstead are a big part of what they do, right? But financially, this is a business. That's why they get complicated.
I thought you were going to go Robbie Gould on your toast.
What did he do?
He retired.
I missed that today.
Yeah, big news.
I think he was just waiting. I mean, after he missed that,
I was like, it's Moody's job now. As if like Robbie can't unretire.
Well, after he missed a couple kicks in preseason, I bet he'd contemplated it the summer, and then let's just see.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I'll wait, and then he splits some uprights. So they're probably not going to make a change around Christmas. So
probably not. I mean, he's been hitting extra points like crazy, So
shows you his faith or his knowledge of the position. It'd be like a golfer or a pitcher know how things like this. I don't care what pick this guy. There's no guarantee this works. I'll wait a little bit.
And you're saying Robbie was looking at it that way?
Yeah, because any other position, right? Even if the guy stunk, like you'd be shit out of luck if it was a D tackle or a guard. They'll just let the guy suck or make him a backup. With a kicker, get ugly quick.
John, most sacks from the 2015 draft? Daniil Hunter.
7th rounder?
He went pick 88.
Not a 7th rounder.
Most touchdowns from the 15 draft? Thrown, Jameis. 2nd, Mariota. 3rd, Trevor Siemian.
Good pick.
Yep. Most rushing touchdowns from that draft, Todd Gurley. And most receiving touchdowns from that draft, Stephon Diggs. Tyler Lockett.
God, those are good picks.
Amari Cooper, Nelson Aguilar.
I mean, most of these guys, I guess Lockett's been on the same team the whole time.
Yeah. I was just saying first rounders only.
No, I know. It was like Marcus Peters. I remember that was controversial, right?
Marcus Peters, yep.
He went above Armstead a couple picks, and people thought Balky should have picked him.
He went the next pick. He went 18.
So what happened was the Niners passed on him for Armstead. That's what it was. And not sure if you guys talked about this on your Raider show, but he was released a couple weeks ago after he got benched, and then he went to did you see other side of the field, pouted, next day cut, no longer Did have a pick 6 earlier this season, but he's a guy that's been on countless teams. Again, he's by no means is a bad pick, right? He's made a ton of plays. He's been in a ton of big games, but I would say not many teams are making him the man of the year nominee for their squad.
No,
like
I don't think so.
like I would say Tyler Lockett
kicked off the team that year at UW. Remember?
Yeah, Andy punted on him in like the prime of his career. Andy punted after he had won I think he'd gone to a couple Pro Bowls, pick 6 like every other game, and he's like, yeah, see ya.
Funny thing is, you redraft that draft, he probably goes higher.
Yeah, I mean, he would. He's not. He can play. He can play.
Yeah,
but
Niners took Blake Bell at tight end that year too.
I wonder if Tyler Lockett is the Seahawks nominee. Feels like he would be in the mix.
I feel like he runs around with the patch on his right.
I would imagine, because I read the Mike Florio, not Mikey Florio. Last year, Tyler Lockett started this real estate company and became the official realtor of the Seattle Seahawks. And people were like, salary cap implications. And he's like, no, I just went about it the right way. I have a fucking normal business. I went to the marketing crew. We talked about it. It's like, guys, it's not that big a deal.
Kind of genius.
It is. Well, it's genius business on him.
It's just genius.
He's like, I'm paying them.
We went to the marketing crew, and the marketing crew was like, all right, let's see if we have any connections over with the Seahawks. We'll see what we can do for you. He's paying them because he's got. Yeah, I got it right. You pay the team to be the official airline, official real estate, official sausage, all that.
Where it does benefit him is he probably has that spot on lock for a while.
Yeah, they're not going to suddenly get overbid without warning.
I would say he's by no means the best player of this. I mean, the rivalry started with Harbaugh, Pete, but it's gone through because they've ended up playing a lot of big games. He's by no means the most famous. The Marshaws, the Shermans, obviously Russ, even Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner's and DK's. He feels like the most consistent. Like every fucking game, that little guy is just there. He scored a lot of touchdowns against the Niners. Even if you hate Seattle, which like Maria, my girlfriend, and her dad, who was a big 49er fan, always hated Pete. And I get it. I don't really find Pete that hateable. There definitely are some coaches. Like, I understand if you're a Jets fan, you hated Belichick, or, if you hated Jason Garrett, or they're just hateable coaches. Sirianni. I don't really find Sirianni definitely very, very hateable. Is Doug Peterson hateable? Like, have you ever heard anyone like, fuck, can't stand Doug Peterson? Pete, I get it. You could argue Pete's a little cheesy. 100%. Jerry, there are a lot of hateable guys in the NFL. Tyler Lockett's just one of those guys if you follow football. And definitely if you're even a 49er guy, you're like, I like that little guy. Little guy could have played for my squad.
I mean, to your point, it feels like he's played the 4th most games of that draft class. So he barely misses any time. Who's
number 1?
All the time. Preston Smith and Laken Tomlinson have each played 141 games.
I guess the best part about
Kenyon, number 3 on that list, punter.
Well, the problem for like Jameis and Mariota, because those two guys might play another 5 years, right, in the NFL. When you're the backup, you just don't play,
right?
A lot of times,
yeah. Unless you listen to David Carr, he said time for Mariota to play.
What would your guess be on career touchdowns for Tyler Lockett? 15, 16, 17?
I got it here, so I can tell you.
Yeah, 58. It's pretty damn good.
Yeah. I mean, what's that, like 6 a year?
Yeah. I mean, really, once 18 started, 10, 8, 10, 8, 9. I mean, I would imagine, a lot of people play fantasy football, but a guy that follows the NFL and doesn't play fantasy football, if you're not a Seahawk fan, I don't think most people would realize he's in the fringes of like 8 to 10 touchdown guy a year. Like Brandon Ayuk's having a fantastic career, going to get $20 million. Like he doesn't have many 5+ touchdown career years, right? I mean, it's hard.
Right. I mean, this year he's got, all the Niners have like 5, but it is like Kittle, right?
Like
Ayuk's got 5, right? 5 or 6.
He's got 6. I guess he had 8 last year.
That's the thing. They all have the same. Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, and McCaffrey all have the same.
Beside McCaffrey, who, that record was good for like a touchdown a game, the other guys will have like a two spot. Like, Kittle just had 3 touchdowns. And then he'll go silent touchdown-wise for like 4 straight games. But you're like, he had 4 touchdowns over 6 games. But really, he just had 3 in the one. Like Debo. If you tell me Debo these next 2 weeks against Seattle and Arizona just doesn't score a touchdown, very believable. Yeah. 3 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. Well, yeah, because they just go off in a single game as an individual.
Well, if you just looked at the Niners like team box score, you'd think that every game it just gets spread to everybody because it all adds up the same in the end.
Yeah, it's like this guy scores 25 a game, this guy scores 23 a game, this guy scores 20. That's just not the way it really works.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you, Zach Ertz. Should the Niners sign Zach Ertz? Let's talk about that because that feeds right into this. The stat, the Niners are one of 4. I looked it up today. Here's the stat. The Niners are one of 4 teams in the league with 4 receivers that have at least 38 catches because Debo has 38. So I was like, all right, who else has 4 guys with 38 or more? McCaffrey has 51, Kittle has 50, Ayuk has 50, Debo has 38. The other 3 are the Jags, the Commanders, and the Bucks. The Jags, like the Niners, will run the ball. The other 2 don't. The Niners are dead last in the league in pass attempts. Last. Yet no one spreads it around 4 guys like this group does. So, part of that is I looked it up in the context of Ertz. Do they have a spot to throw this guy the ball? The Niners, the last 3 years, counting this year, their number 2 tight end spot this year, 2022 and 2021, over those 3 years have combined for 18 catches. Okay. Ertz has 27 catches this year through 7 games. Non-Kittle tight ends the last 3 years have combined for 18 total catches. Ertz is 33 years old, Monte Vista High School, Danville, California. IR on the Cardinals, released, quad injury. He hasn't played since October 22nd, week 7. 27 catches in 7 games. So Niners are putting, I guess in theory, Niners could put Dwelly on IR with an ankle. What do you think, Zach Ertz?
Well, he doesn't play special teams.
Right.
So part of the way this team is built, whoever that guy is that they are not dependent on at all, has to play some special teams. If you're going to dress on game day and you're not McCaffrey, Kittle, Juszczyk, who's going to play a little special teams here and there, Ayuk, Debo, who, if the game matters, I would imagine Debo's not kick returning in this game. It's probably Ronnie Bell, assuming Ray Ray's out. That would be my educated guess. Do you agree with that one?
Yeah, I think it's a good call.
So Ronnie Bell's going to get a lot of juice. But part of to dress on game day, and this is what I learned in the NFL, because it's easy, even as a scout, to be a fan. Oh, fuck, this guy is a huge upgrade over anything we had. Well, how do we make a pencil on game day?
Right.
And I haven't broken down their special team snaps, but if the case is that guy was playing a role in several teams.
Well, he was.
So what do I do? I'm actually better off just elevating my next 2 guys that I can just insert in there and just play the way I'm playing. That's where it gets a little complicated. Now, part of his complication is he's injured. Like Shaq Leonard, who signs with the Eagles. Eagles fucking just this guy's not a back. He's going to start, right? If he's healthy, he's going to play. This is, Ertz cannot do what Kittle does. So it's not like a duplicate player. He can't block. He's never been able to block. And, I think this is more complicated for every team. Like the Ravens, I saw some quotes from Harbaugh.
Yeah.
I think it was last week. To me, that makes kind of sense. If Mark Andrews out for the year, I just kind of need a tight end if I think he's better than the guy I'm rolling out. But if he's going to be my backup, like he is on this team, and you can throw the Chiefs. The Chiefs need pass receivers. Why wouldn't they be interested in this guy?
For sure.
Well, it's well, our best players are starting tight end, a skill guy. So he's not better than that guy. And then our backup, whoever that is, also has to play special. It's a little more complicated math than you think, right? In baseball, if the guy's just out there, but he's not going to be your starting third baseman, but the guy that he would replace is actually a switch hitter. He's not, and that guy can play out.
Right.
It's kind of a puzzle piece that on the surface, of course, you sign Zach Ertz. And to me, if it was like baseball and the December roster expanded, I think the Niners would be all over. I wonder if it's a little more complicated than people think.
I think it's a great call because the Niners' room for The Niners offense could get, I guess, marginally better. There would be a play or two where Zach Ertz in a big spot, Kyle schemes something up and he makes a great catch. And you go, God, what a moment for Zach Ertz. But I don't think the Niners are going to start scoring 0.1 point per game more if Zach Ertz suddenly starts playing a bunch of snaps for them on offense. I just illustrated the numbers. 51 for McCaffrey, 50 for Kittle, 50 for Ayuk, 38 for Debo. Feels like Jennings has a big catch a week. He's got like 17 catches for the whole year. They got plenty of players and not enough ball. One of their weaknesses is special teams. George Odom's already hurt. Having your special teams get weaker at the expense making your offense marginally better at the expense of your special teams may not be worth it to this team unless they have an answer on special teams, right? Agreed. Because I don't really know how much better. Now, we saw for a second what it might look like if you put Jordan Reed and George Kittle together on a team. Kittle got hurt that year. Jordan Reed got hurt that year.
Team's a lot different.
That team was
a lot better.
Yeah. And Ayuk was Ayuk's rookie year.
Guy, they just scored 6 touchdowns in 3 quarters
McCaffrey
against a 10-1 team on the road.
It's to me, it's a luxury item, but like a luxury item that might actually cost you something. Because you don't think the pitch to Ertz is like, hey man, I got 25 snaps for you on offense and you can play special teams near where you grew up.
Well, it just doesn't. He's not a special teams player.
He's not going to do it. Yeah.
But it's not. You don't even. It's not even an option. Like you don't. The guy doesn't play special teams. And honestly, it's not really. You wouldn't want him playing special. He's not a physical. Your backup tight ends are usually just kind of tougher, grittier guys in that position. If you just look around the league, now it makes the Niners unique is they're, Kittle easily could probably be one of the better special teams players in the league, right? It's just he'd be a core special teamer. He'd be elite at it. He's fast. He's physical. He's fucking open field tackle. He'd be awesome. But I just you don't put a guy that's never played special teams on special teams who's not it's weird. He is a tough guy, but it's not really his thing. So Travis Kelce would not be a good special teamer, even in his prime. Because as a tight end, you're not playing you're like in the line on kick return. You're like in the line on punt. It's just so not Zach.
Does Logan Ryan play special teams?
I mean, he could.
TDP goes to practice squad. Logan Ryan is on your active roster. Dwelly goes to IR. You add Ertz, and you replace Dwelly on special teams with
your special teams are just tougher, right? They're just tough. Like all the corners can tackle, right? So you can put Lenore, or I guess Lenore, but Ambry Thomas. All those guys can rotate. Hufanga, he made the team. Boom, special teams. Ronnie Bell, special teamer. It's why Danny Gray was impressive because he was speed and he would tackle. Like it's a pretty dangerous play, whatever the given play is, punt or kickoff. Punt definitely more because it feels like there are more consistent punt returns. A lot of kickoffs go out of the end zone unless the 49ers, choose to try to angle it at the 13-yard line.
Yeah. This was Barrows said Niners believed to be one of the teams most interested. So there you go. I saw Harbaugh said a couple days ago, he kind of did that. Well, we like the room we have, but
it's like negotiations.
Yeah. Monte Vista grads. How many Danville, Monte Vista High School alums can you name?
Give me a second one.
Jake Haener.
That's a good one.
Bob Myers.
That's a pretty good one.
Mark Appel. Remember him?
That's a good one.
Batting stance guy.
That's a good one.
Pretty prolific.
Did you see the high school slate this weekend on Friday?
State championships?
I mean, some of these teams, it's an incredible lineup.
Is it, who is De La Salle hosting? Is it Clovis East? No, not Clovis East. Buchanan? There was some controversy, John. I was in Fresno this week. The newspaper.
No, it's in LA. It's like the state.
Oh, that game already happened then. That game.
Yeah.
Was
so they owed. De La Salle must have because they were in it.
Oh wow! But it was controversial because De La Salle had a loss. The team out of Fresno was undefeated, but you can't play back-to-back section championship games on not section. Whatever. They're not state title games, but whatever those state semis are on the road. And De La Salle was on the road last year. So
yeah, it is. So we got Grant High School versus Lucerna. Don't know Lucerna.
Lucerna. Okay.
And we got De La Salle versus Mission Viejo.
All right.
Can
These
you
are
name
at
you know any Mission Viejo alums?
I mean, I'm sure, but no. Who?
Famous USC quarterback Sanchez.
Oh, okay.
I think Carson Palmer as well.
All right.
You got I can't even say this. The game's irrelevant, but Folsom versus St. Bonaventures and Sarah versus Mater Dei. So, I mean, De La Salle, Mission Viejo, Folsom, St. Bonaventures, Sarah, Mater Dei. Those are, I mean, we're talking the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Georgias of high school football in California. I mean, these are the biggest brands. Sarah, Mission Viejo, De La Salle, Folsom.
Brands? You think it's going to rate?
But well, it's on TV, but do you agree? I mean, these are usually the biggest programs in the state. I mean, you're talking Tom Brady's, Jake Browning's, a million fucking USC guys, and Oregon guys.
Grant, Folsom, and De La Salle are all in the state championships?
Well, because De La Salle is no longer Division I, and Grant is definitely not anymore. So they are not in the same level.
But they have which one's in the open division? Do they still have that?
They changed that. So Sarah is. So maybe they cooked the books to get Sarah and Mater Dei there. So what I got is Grant is 1AA, and so that's like basically Division II, and Folsom St. Bonnie's is like the big division.
Division I.
So Grant and Folsom and De La Salle are no longer equals in terms of the way the state views it. Which to me is a little stupid. Like they're the fucking same thing.
You're just trying to get All right. There's your high school football talk for the show. Niners Seahawks is coming up on Sunday, John. I watched Pete Carroll's press conference today to try and glean some insight, and I got nothing out of it, really. But other than Pete was upbeat, this is a game that I think everyone's going to pick the Niners in. But I do wonder. They said they had their moment. Remember, after they lost 3 in a row, and it was Bosa and these guys like Fred Warner. We gotta be more dialed in. Got to be more aggressive. Letdown game against the Eagles this week.
I wouldn't feel very comfortable these next 2 weeks taking the Niners in the points. I think one of these next 2 weeks, Seattle right now is 10.5, 11 to depend where you live. Next week against Arizona. I mean, are they a 2-touchdown favorite? One of these games, they're going to be down at half. I would bet a lot of money. Honestly, it feels a little bit like this week. I saw Fred Warner yesterday say, like, we kind of got the Eagle game's over. No more Eagle talk. I do think it's very difficult in the sport of football. This happens a lot in college, right? It's like I understood Michigan not being as excited to play fucking Iowa. They literally have a period in practice that's Ohio State all year long. It's like wouldn't you say the Eagle and Niner game kind of became collegiate over the last 9 months, the way they talk back and forth, the way they were always talked about synonymously, when historically, the last couple decades, they have nothing to do with each other, even though both teams have had a lot of success separately. They've not like the Packers and the Niners, or even lately the Cowboys and the Niners have played. They played one time that has mattered. And the game became such a big deal that it took a lot of energy and discussion, I think, just in the football landscape over the last 9-10 months.
Yeah. I don't think it was about revenge against the Eagles so much. It was about they thought they were going to beat them the first time, and they've had to wait this long. They've been waiting for this game to prove it. And I think that all that being pent up in you, then you let it out the way they did, it can definitely linger in a bad way.
But then they come back the games later in the season. One team's 10-1, and the other team's 8-3.
Yeah, then it's even better. Could have imagined.
So seed, it's
like you lose the 1 seed if you lose that game.
I just think this is a human business, and we're all like, the 49ers have beat this team 4 times in the last 15 months.
Yeah,
a little longer, because I think Jimmy came in. Remember week 2 when Trey got hurt against Seattle.
Right.
So they started beating them then, and they have not let up. And I would say 3 of those 4 games, the eye test, sometimes the score, like this last score, 31-17, I don't know if it reflected that game on Thanksgiving.
What
They were up
21 48 to 10.
Well, it was up 28-1-3 at half. They come out and score 10 points in the third quarter to make it 21-13. It's like, they had a good couple series. It was not, they're not really equal. But even Fred said, Fred talked about the game pretty well. He's like, listen, some of these scores recently with this team have been double digits, but we felt in the game like it's not an easy game. Like it can get weird. I just think that these division games, I think this is a way if you just gamble on the NFL, like Bears-Lions this week in Chicago. Like I don't think betting the Bears is a crazy thing to do. Like these division games get weird once a year. It wouldn't shock me at all. You're telling me that like Levi's is going to be rocking and the 49ers are going to be super fired up. I would completely understand if it's a little bit of just a letdown play for everyone that was the regular season Super Bowl last week. And it was for a reason because it is. I mean, it's a big fucking deal. The Niners really had two games to me this year that were just a big fucking deal. And that was obviously the Cowboys and the Eagles because it's a 2-off. Like you're going to have to play them again more than likely. The Ravens game in theory is really big and it's going to impact the seeding, but like that's a Super Bowl rematch potentially, maybe. I mean, who knows? It's not the same. I would not put that on the same level. Not from a game standpoint. It could be really hard. You could lose. Like it's not easy at all. I just think there's just more investment in those two games. There just is. From the fans, from the emotion, from just the connectivity of the teams. And I just think there's a human nature to this. Like always. I mean, it's football. It's why like trap games are real because like, how do you go from that high to like come back to earth? Like Florida State and Georgia is a great example. Like I wouldn't put any money on that game from any angle. Who knows? Both those two teams could be mentally somewhere else.
I saw a screen grab of Mike Norvell and Kirby Smart on the Zoom conference call for that game. And it said like, which one wants to be here less? And it did look like neither one to be there. But, if you set the stage the way you did for, hey, there's the potential that this is a trap game.
I don't mean lose. I could just see.
I know. You just mean like flat.
27-20 or something, just.
Well, then the flip side of that is if the Niners roll out there and beat Seattle again.
It's coming in the next 2 weeks. It could be this week, could be next week, but it's coming. Just they're down at half. And just like, God, are they even trying?
Or they score on the first drive and then you look up and it's just 10-7 in the third quarter.
Because it was easy to get their mojo back after they had lost 3 games and everyone came back and they started beating the shit out of everybody. Then they got to play the Eagles. They beat the shit out of them. How are you watching? Seattle's better than Arizona, but deep down you're way better than them. And then even, let's say they do come out and they play well this week. The Arizona game, there would be like a 15-point favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I bet I look right now, it's 13.5 now.
Yeah, so let's say they win 27-20 in Arizona, whatever they do this week. Yeah. If you tell me that honestly, if you told me the Niners won this game by 20, like let's say they legitimately blow them out.
Yeah.
Could that be 17 by next week?
Yeah, the only thing that the
Cardinals, it is on the road
for them, right? It's on the road and the Cardinals are off a bye.
So 17 might be hard to get to, but 15 feels very capable.
But all I'm saying is by the same token, then if the Niners roll out and pound the Seahawks by 24 points, you got to give them credit for
100%.
Would that open your eyes? Would that prove it? I mean, like you look at these games and you go like, well, what do you want out of this game? You want to win, you want health. That's what you want, right? Unlike college football, there's no style points. But so then the question is, can they prove anything against Seattle? Can they prove anything against Arizona?
Seattle is coming off the extra, right? They got a little extra rest because
they're back to their normal. Niners are back to their normal schedule where they're playing teams who have the schedule advantage. The Niners had the advantage last week. It's over.
The Ravens are on a bye too this week, right?
Ravens,
no, they're not.
No, but what's the advantage on? Is there an advantage on the Ravens game? I
thought there was.
I don't have an advantage. The Ravens are coming off a road game in Jacksonville, so neither team's coming off big travel.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at the wrong week. Never mind. Ravens game is in 2 weeks, not this week or not next week.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the Ravens are doing this week.
The Ravens are playing. The Rams at home. So they go Rams, Jacksonville. Niners go Seattle, Arizona.
Okay.
I mean, you don't think that it's like I won't judge them at all if it's like 14 to 7.5 and they're down. I don't think it's that weird. It's football. Like this is the NFL. You don't just blow everybody out in the first half too. Like you get to come out slow. It's going to happen.
They just blew out the Eagles. You want to go beat the Seahawks by 7? Fine. Just make sure you win the game.
Yeah, you can't lose.
I'm just saying I'll be impressed. Like I think you keep.
I'd be very impressed. If you tell me they're up 24-0 at half, I'm like, God, this team, are they just going to fucking blow everybody out and win the Super Bowl by double digits?
That is the conversation here Sunday. If they beat Seattle by 24 points and then they go beat the Cardinals and they don't trail by 24, and then they roll against the Ravens, not roll the Ravens, but like then you're going to the Ravens game, and I think they look like this. The Niners look like the Super Bowl favorite now. They are the betting favorite now.
Well, you win this game, feed up. You just get to watch You just get to watch the Sunday night game and root for the Eagles, root against the Eagles. It's great.
But yeah, good point.
Because I saw someone say that even if the Cowboys win, they technically wouldn't be in first place in division because they both have, their conference loss record. The Eagles right now 1 loss. Beside the Niners, they both lost to the Niners. The Eagles lost to the Jets, but the Cowboys blew that Arizona game where they got their ass kicked early in the season.
Wait, which game?
So remember the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals like week 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But the Eagles only lost beside the Niners. The Eagles are 10-2. Is a non-conference game. So they don't it's a problem for the Cowboys. And the Eagles, I saw the Eagles schedule. The other thing for the Niners is the Eagles schedule after this game, even if they lose, is they have not played the New York Football Giants yet. So they still they get to play them twice, and they play the Cardinals at home. So that Monday night game next week got flexed for the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
They play Seattle, and the Kansas City and the Patriots got booted back to Sunday, which is kind of a sneaky big win if you're Andy. Like you wouldn't want to have an extra day to play the Patriots. Like let's just
that's a road Monday night game for the
here's what the Eagles do, and this is why all these games matter. Like I'm not saying they get the room to blow one of these games. It doesn't matter, and obviously you got to win these games. But the Eagles get the Cowboys. Let's say they lose, so now they're 10-3. Niners are 10-3. The Eagles then get the Seahawks, which is in Seattle, so they're gonna have to travel there, and that's Monday Night Football. Short week Giants, then Cardinals, then at Giants. I think you feel pretty confident they go 3-0 that final stretch. Maybe at Seattle Monday night.
Unless Jalen gets hurt, which I mean, if Detroit wins at Chicago, which it's supposed to rain on Saturday in Chicago. I don't know about Sunday.
Do you trust Jared Goff outside?
No, that's what I'm getting at. It's no.
I don't view the Lions anymore as a team that can get like the 1 seed, 2 seed. They're clearly going to be in my mind, the 3 seed or the 2 seed. But I don't view them as a 1 seed because they're going to blow a game.
If Philly loses and the Niners win and Detroit wins, you got 3 10-3 teams in the NFC. Niners would have the tiebreak over both.
Yeah.
It's just I'm with you on Detroit. I am, but I'm a believer that Detroit's just a tier 2 team. It's what they are. That's fine. And the Niners could beat Goff head to head, no problem. But you look up, you're all 10-3. Like you just can't have you just can't screw up.
Yeah. Detroit's lucky that they just get to be in just a kind of where they get a lot of respect in my mind is they just in a tier by themselves. Like obviously the Niners, if you could put the Niners on their own tier, then you go Eagles, Cowboys. To me, Detroit is not on their level. They're in the next, but no one else in the NFC. I guess the only team that would be a little bit of a sleeper, which I'm telling you is kind of interesting right now. And if the Niners are the 2 seed, if they were the 7 seed, Jordan Love and the Packers, he fucking looks pretty good.
Hey,
he looks pretty good.
Remember you and I did that show with Larry Krueger?
He looks good.
And he said, who's going to make the playoffs? And I said the Packers. I wouldn't be worried about beating them, but I would put, all right, NFL, forget about the NFC, just in the league. Is there another team on Detroit's tier I might put Jacksonville there. Jacksonville and Detroit, same tier. What do you think?
Yeah, kind of similar.
Miami, Baltimore, Kansas City, Philly, San Francisco, Dallas, tier 1.
I would say one wild card just on a given game because he's so good and their team can just go to toe-to-toe with these would be the Bills.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I mean, they're not a playoff team right now, but yeah.
They're just the wild
6
card.
and
Their
6.
ceiling's really – they're 6-6, and they play the Chiefs this week and then the Cowboys. I just do think they're just within 2 weeks, they might just be irrelevant because they're out. Tell me this. If it's 2-7, Dolphins hosting the Bills round 1, that sucks for the Dolphins.
It does. Who would have guessed, John? Rodgers' team, Allen's team, Herbert's team. None of them are in the playoffs right now. Russell Wilson's team.
They're in trouble.
People would have guessed that.
Yeah.
But Apple Cup this week. Minshew, Jake Browning, Bengals Colts. It's a big game.
Where's that game?
I don't know.
Kind of a rough slate.
That's what we say every week. The game's in Cincy. What do we got this week?
You know what? You're kind of a rough slate, and then you're like watching Broncos Texans on the edge of your seat. You're like, God, this is a great game.
I saw on we're doing this Thursday, obviously, if you're listening to it after. Herb Street tweeted a picture of his dog, Ben, which he's been tweeting a lot of pictures of his dog, Ben. And he said, Ben and I, and then in all caps, fired up for Patriots Steelers tonight. Portnoy retweeted and said, liar. But, you know, it's the NFL, man. It's a big stage.
Yeah, they're paying them. They're paying them.
Jags Browns does. You know, Lions Bears is probably on the list of the watch list for this week.
There was a clip. They must have. I think they moved inside the NFL. You know, where they do the 3 or 4 games where they've kind of cut up and they've mic'd up the players, and it's really good through the NFL films. That shows now, I think, on CW. You know, like Cutler, Ocho Cinco, Ryan Clark, maybe Chris Long. I mean, it's just I've never seen it, but sometimes I see clips. Yeah, the Niners and Eagles obviously were guys mic'd up this week, and I saw a clip at the end of the game, toward the end of the game. John Lynch was just doing his bear hugs to guys, and then he did Purdy. He's like, "I'm proud of you," and they just did this, and I was thinking, you know, John Rahm's getting paid a bunch of money. He's going to live, and there's just a level of like, obviously John Rahm's already rich. I mean, very rich. Worth probably got $100 million in the bank. John Lynch, rich. He was rich before he got this job. Now he makes, many in the league believe he might be the highest paid GM that's not like also the coach. You know, like we're talking, he might be making like $10 million. And obviously Amazon was going to pay him more and his job would be much easier. Like Kirk Herbstreit's job is his a little unique because he's doing 2 things, so he's flying all over the place. But still, like being a GM, it's just long days and you're tired. But there was this level, you could see it, like he just fucking loved being in the trenches. And those hugs after that win are worth millions to a guy who desires to be in the hunt, to be doing the deal, to be in the trenches with the boys. And you just can't, you know, I have so much respect for anyone who's left it after, especially a former player, and then misses it enough and then does it and likes it. Like say this about John Elway. It ended poorly, but he fucking liked it, you know? Yeah. Like he took, like you just watched him, you're like, oh, this guy kind of just a natural fit. You know, Steve Kerr, what's he doing this for now? Like, why? What's the, he just loves it, man. There's an itch that no amount of money on the outside, and I'm sorry, like you get offered, let's just assume they offered him $18 million. Now, since he's got a raise, at the time he might have been making 6. 3xing your salary for an easier life. You've already won a Super Bowl. You're going to the Hall of Fame. Like, I'm not fucking leaving this. I have a lot of respect for that, man.
I think that kind of stuff is contagious too. Like when you are there, when it's that you are here, you are just here for the competition. That's what it's about, right? Everybody knows you could make more money doing something easier. / you don't need this. Like this is, you don't, like Brian Gutekunst's like, this is his life's work, right? You're right. Lynch could just walk away or he can work for Amazon or he can do whatever else, just do speaking engagements, do whatever he wants.
Do whatever the fuck he wants.
But I choose to be here with you, man.
It's like the famous Jerry Jones. I think one of their Hard Knocks when he addresses the team might have been ego too, but he's like, guys, I could be anywhere in the world right now.
Exactly.
But I choose to be standing here with you.
Beautiful.
Which I even give Jerry some of this. There's validity there. Now he financially benefits from everything, but he likes being with the boys. I'll be honest. I worked for Philly multiple years in the office. Yeah, you didn't see Jeffrey that often. I don't know what he was doing. Maybe he's around more. I don't blame him. I mean, I'd be doing all sorts of other shit too.
He's like, I could be, Jeffrey's like, I could be anywhere in the world. But this Sunday, for 3 hours, I'll be in my suite.
Then I'm going back to Jupiter, Florida. See you guys.
As long as it's a close game, I'll stay for the whole thing.
Howie, I'll text you. Keep your phone on.
You don't think Howie's making $10 million?
I think he makes a decent amount of money.
No.
Yeah, probably. And I'm just arbitrarily throwing that. I know Joe Douglas years ago became like a top 3 GM at like 6, but he's been with the Jets now for a while. Because a lot of GMs, if you're an owner, you're paying the coach so much money, and he kind of has decision-making power. So even if you really like the GM, it's just a market. Like, why would I? You guys aren't going to even be close to equal, but there's a going rate. I think a lot of GMs and front office people think they kind of get fucked relative to their coaching brethren, right? If you're the assistant GM, if you're Adam Peters, let's say you're making, let's pick a number. Could be off. Could be low. Let's just say he's making $900,000. Well, he'd look and go, well, Steve Wilkes is making 1.8, and even Brian Greasy might be making $950. And it's where you go, well, the equivalent of my role for them, it would be triple what I'm making, right? Vic Fangio's making 6. So if I'm Howie's right-hand guy or John Schneider's right-hand guy, shouldn't I be making like 2? And it's where then you start getting into like the quality control guy makes 180 and my cheapest scout makes 40.
Right.
It's just the scouting community kind of gets screwed in a business that's booming, right? Like, did you see the one thing that made me shake my head today was this Michigan Harbaugh contract. And, the number obviously is relative to college coaches. You make over $10 million as a college coach, you're immediately in the Saban Kirby realm, right? Hell, I saw Ryan Day makes like $10 million. They're like, they have an offer 5 years, 11 on the table. It's like, guys, you just saw last year the Denver Broncos gave Sean Payton $18 million. No one has any clue what like Andy's and Belichick's make. A lot of people think Belichick's been making 25 for like 7-8 years. And sometimes whenever I see the headline of like Andy Reid making $12 million, like I might double that, guys. If you told me Andy Reid right now makes $22 million a year, is that unbelievable?
No, and if he's not making it right now, he'll be making it next year, so he's not making less than Sean Payton, right?
But how could if Andy did some sort of contract extension in the last couple of years, or just behind the scenes kind of kept it quiet because he's never been like put it out there, especially since he's been in Kansas City. At what world am I not worth at minimum $20 million to you? I took over this franchise. It was a fucking disaster. We see all these other guys making 10, 12. Hell, Kyle Shanahan, if he's making 15, which I think he is, give or take, his value to this 49er franchise, like I saw what it was with Chip Kelly and Tom Sula. Like that's the money he makes Jed York and held the league. Like if Kyle Shanahan wanted $25 million just as an earner, I don't even think it's that crazy. If Andy Reid was like, I want 40, is he not worth 40 to the Chiefs? You could argue coaches are vastly underpaid. Lombardi's been saying this forever. It's like, if you're willing to pay a top player 50, you're telling me an elite coach isn't worth 30 or 40? Fuck no.
What's tough is that, like, the number you make is what sets up the next number you make. And it's really hard to pay. Like, but most owners aren't going to free agent pay a guy $20 million. Right. I mean, the Broncos just did, but Andy's raises.
That guy's not available very often, right?
That guy's not available very often either. Yeah.
Andy Reid was originally hired off being fired.
If Bill's available, what's that going to cost?
He's not a $11 million coach.
He's a $25 minimum million coach.
Yeah, and maybe to facilitate something, he's 18. But like the going rate, when I see the Harbaugh thing, I go, guys, why? Even if wants to stay,
right? The condition was, we'll offer you this if you don't pursue an NFL job. Say that part too.
Well, at minimum, if Harbaugh got a 5-year contract from Team X, what's the starting salary? $16 million a year?
Yeah.
Give or take $1 million up or down.
And it might not be a 4-year or 5-year contract. It might be a 7-year, 8-year contract.
Why would Michigan only offer him a 5-year? To me, if you want him to sign the thing, make it 10 for 11, like $110 million or something. 5-year contract. Well, I'm not signing. I don't even think that's a good deal if that's true. It doesn't even pencil. They just gave Lincoln Riley $120 million. Where does Michigan? I was thinking about this today. Is Michigan, because I was like, well, if Harbaugh were to leave and DeBoer, they called DeBoer, is there any chance he would just stay at Washington? I started thinking, Michigan is probably one of the best jobs in all of sports if it's good, any sport, especially if they're paying a lot of money, right? Like I'm talking Cowboys, Yankees. Like you could argue on a given year it's the best college job or right up there. Historically, the brand. I mean, Harbaugh's made it back. You could argue Ohio State's a little bit better, but okay. Michigan's not far behind.
Ann Arbor's a good town.
It's definitely a top 5 college job, right?
Yeah.
Like is Alabama a great job, or they just nailed the John Wooden of college football? Like if he leaves, are they actually a better job than LSU? And I think history would say no, because it's easier for them to recruit.
Mm-hmm.
Now NIL might change things, but you could argue on a given year, Michigan's the best job in the country. Especially if they have access now with NIL money.
What it's like to walk the sideline in that stadium.
The importance you play to the sport, the whole thing.
You do.
History.
Yeah. You do have to beat Ohio State every year. That's challenging, right?
But same with Ohio State. It's why those 2 jobs, you could argue those are 1 and 2, and there's a lot of pressure that come with that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just, I guess what I mean is like a UW or a lot of places, there's not a team that gets you fired if you can't beat them for 2 or 3 years in a row, right? Like Dan Lanning isn't about to get fired because he can't beat UW.
No.
At Oregon.
But part of the reason Ryan Day is, if let's say he loses next year and goes 11-1 again and loses to Michigan, he could get fired. But a part of that's financially. Do you know he has his salary and the salary pool for his assistant highest in the country? So they're investing the most money, so my standards are going to be the highest.
Right.
It's why Harbaugh was like, it's kind of getting weird. It's like, listen, after a while, we start winning 8-9 games every year. It's cool, but this is not the standard here. We need some. And then now what he's doing, everything's fucking awesome.
Yeah. I had a coach a couple of weeks ago. I was talking to a college coach, John. He told me having Jim Harbaugh as your coach is like being a boat owner. The 2 best days are the day you hire him and the day he leaves. Just like, they say a boat owner, the 2 best days are the day you buy the boat and the day you sell the boat.
Which I think, listen, I talked to a scouting buddy yesterday that, Jim, you're only allowed to show up 2 Tuesdays in September in training camp, and you can only show up for practice. Like I don't think people have, unless you work for him and he indirectly then makes you a lot of money, like Sharon Moore when he starts crying. That guy has changed Sharon Moore's life, right? Naming him as offensive coordinator, working his way up. He's going to make that guy millions of dollars. So even if the guy's hard on you or whatever, like you owe, like when Lane talks about Saban, there are many days when Lane probably fucking wanted to take a bat to Saban's head, but he also knows what he meant for his trajectory of his money-making ability. I do think on the outside, it's so easy to shit on him. Like, oh, this guy's an idiot. Oh, this guy's overrated. Oh, this guy's a meathead. Oh, this guy's fucking crazy ass. If you're in business with him, he's great for business, right? He makes you a lot of money. And there has been historically, whether it's, whatever business or industry, Steve Jobs, to you name it, to obviously sports, that the guys that a lot of people don't have great things to say. I don't think people loved Belichick for a long time or Saban. And you sure take those 2 guys. Mm-hmm. Andy Reid is not normal. Like everyone loves him and he wins. Like I'd say that's an abnormal situation specifically in sports. Like historically, like Pat Riley's really hard, right? He's hard on you. As a player, you got to do those, the tests to stay in shape. Or Rick Pitino, they have the fat test. It's difficult. And I think that's usually comes with winning. Like winning's not easy. And Harbaugh, I was thinking about this also the other day, is Jim's ability to hire these coaches over like a decade-long stretch of all different angles has been pretty incredible.
Yeah, it feels like he's hiring a major position coach every 2 years.
I don't know if his agent or whoever is helping him fish these guys, if it's just one of his underrated elite talents. Like if you just told me like that's actually Jim Harbaugh's best talent, he like keeps these lists, he talks to specific guys. I have no clue, but it is like Sharon Moore. Dude was a walk-on or a JC transfer to Bob Stoops. He's like our age. Like how did was it just a connection through a coaching friend? Like I get the Greg Roman, him and Harbaugh, or McDonald, the defensive coordinator. But someone like that, and he has a lot of those, like Jed Fish or whoever, what's his connection to these guys?
I don't know. I love Sharon Moore's playing career, though. Community college and then a guard at Oklahoma. That guy might just really be a good coach.
I saw Bob Stoops said that you knew right away there are players that you have that just, whether they might not be the best players on your team or the guys going to the league, but you're like, this guy fucking knows football. And, I'd say historically those guys turn out to be the coaches, right? Because they're an addict and they understand the game better than their body can play it.
Mm-hmm.
It's why it's unstoppable if you actually have the talent and you can play. You'd be like Peyton Manning. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
Or Drew Brees. Like if those guys, or Phillip Rivers, if those guys wanted to be coaches, like their knowledge and their understanding. Now, could they communicate it from a coaching standpoint, non-playing? I don't know. It's obviously more difficult. But I think most guys, like if you just look around the country, are like fringe players that then become really good. Wasn't Tosh Lupoy, a former kind of fringe player? Did he play at Cal? I know he worked for Tedford. I don't know if he played there. I don't know. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, Cal. Good call. Walnut Creek. Wait, did he play? Yeah, played at Cal.
Yeah. You know the thing about Tosh Lupoy? Exactly. Smart guy. You know the thing about Tosh? Is like he ain't fucking with like Boise State or New Mexico. It's just
rings.
Cal, Washington, Bama, Cleveland Browns, Falcons, Jags, back to Oregon.
Yeah, weird resume though.
Very weird.
Yeah. John, I did want to play this. We don't have to spend much time on this, but Steve Young on KNBR says the Eagles are pretenders.
Like, what pretenders these guys were. Like, they're not good. They're not. Last year, that defense was smothering. It's not. They've lost people in linebacker that you could just see. Like, they didn't have the pursuit. They didn't have they don't have it. I don't know if they get it back. I know they were tired too, but I was like, we're really good. I mean, I get that part too, but I just felt like a pretender situation.
We are good, Steve.
To me, it's hard for them to be pretenders. There's just not, how many championship contenders are there really in the league this year? Feels like, my tier one is no more than 6 teams. So I don't think they're pretenders. I just think the Niners made them look that way.
Well, I think if you ask the casual fan, can the Dolphins win the Super Bowl? I think 90% of people would say no. And they're currently the number 1 seed.
Right.
And they control their own destiny. To me, the craziest part about this year is like the AFC was billed as this powerhouse and the NFC was viewed like, oh, it's the Niners and Eagles and we'll see on the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I feel like whoever comes out of the NFC, obviously the Niners should, they're going to be the betting favorite. But if they don't, there are only, to me, 2 other options that can. That's Dallas and Philly. Like the NFC is going to be favored in the Super Bowl. I mean, if the Niners rolled, there's a chance they could be like a 7-8 point favorite in the Super Bowl. Feels like it's impossible to get double digits unless like the Ravens were to win it and Lamar shattered his leg in the 4th quarter or something. But
yeah, I mean, how they played the Ravens the first time would be a part of that if they played Baltimore again. Right.
Yeah.
Even if the Chiefs have won, let's say the Chiefs have just won on the road in Miami in the AFC Championship game.
I think if the Niners are in the Super Bowl, and it's healthy and they've beaten Dallas, they've beaten Philly, you're looking at minimum a touchdown favorite in the Super Bowl.
At Allegiant Stadium.
Mark's like, I can't fucking get away from these guys.
They're gonna buy a lot of beer at his stadium.
I can't get away from these guys.
A couple super chats here, John. $5. If Brock played all last year, he's the rookie of the year. You could argue he's the comeback player of the year this year while playing like the MVP. Think about that. Pretty impressive. You know, when I started reading that comment, I thought this is a little much, but actually it's not a little much.
I don't think it's possible for him to be the comeback player of the year, given that his injury ended in the playoffs.
Yeah, it cost him like 3 quarters.
Yeah, I don't even think he's a candidate. Do you?
No, I don't either. But I do think the point is just he could have been rookie of the year. Now you would say he is a comeback player this year, and he's playing like an MVP. Like that's impressive.
I mean, people on Niners Twitter wanted him benched in training camp for throwing a couple picks to Greenlaw. So,
yeah, but a lot of that was people who thought Trey Lance was the answer.
Yeah, but they thought Trey Lance was better than Brock Purdy. That's think about that.
I was thinking about this the other day, like to walk into a locker room that has not one but 2 other quarterbacks, and still everyone looks at you like, this guy's got some dude qualities. Pretty telling, right?
I reposted on Instagram. They replayed some Instagram account the phone call of John to Purdy, the draft pick.
You sent it to me, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I sent it to you. It's just, is there a little, could you take anything of it or just classic football talk? Like, we really like you on tape. It's a good spot for you. But you kind of look back, you go, we really like you on tape. There's a great spot for you. We just paid a backup quarterback $2 million and our fucking drafted a guy 3rd overall the year before, and we gave him 17 first rounders for him.
Maybe
spot.
He means like great spot. You get to learn from Kyle. You'll be on practice squad. We'll cut you.
No, I mean Kyle said that to him. Remember?
Well, yeah, okay, but you know what I'm saying. Like you'll get to work with me. We'll cut you. Nobody will claim you. You'll be on practice squad. It'll be fine. There's going to be no pressure. Maybe that's what he meant. Or do you think he meant? If you told me that he wrote down a little note dated that night that said, starting quarterback taking me to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's an all-time pick, but that would make it 10x, 1,000x if they had if they even imagined he could be their starter.
We were eating dinner last night at the dining room table. It's amazing as you get domesticated and you grow up, you don't eat on the couch anymore. You eat at tables.
Wait, dining room table or kitchen island?
Dining room, kitchen island. You can't really.
Dining room table. Can you see the TV from the dining room table?
Yeah, where I sit, yeah. And unless she puts the flowers that get in your way, and I kind of move them before I set the table. And she was like, what if I told you a year ago that the 49ers would potentially have the MVP as a quarterback on their team? She had a pretty good little radio take, and they had drafted him. Would anyone have believed that it wouldn't have been Trey Lance? I would have been like, God, they hit a home run. They got a guy that's just their star quarterback. Like, what a draft pick. They're going to get these guys are going to become legends.
That's a great take from Maria.
Is it more legendary that it worked out? It's more legendary that it worked out this way, right?
Oh, then it being Trey?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? Like,
if you get more credit for a 7th round pick than trading your whole draft for a player.
Well, I don't know if you do because there's so much, you only get so much luck for a 7th round pick. You trade your whole draft for a player like Brett Veach on Mahomes. He gets more credit on Mahomes because of what they did than if they had just drafted Mahomes in the 3rd round, I think. The Patriots didn't know that Brady was going to be that.
No.
So I think you actually get more credit if it had been Lance. Because
if you come up and get the guy.
Yeah, you orchestrated it. Like you played chess. And because you would agree, right? Veach and Andy get a ton of credit on Mahomes.
Yeah.
More so than they would have, if, like I said, if he was a 2nd rounder or something.
Like, do the Cowboys get an unlimited amount of credit for Dak Prescott just being in the 4th round? You liked him, but you didn't love him.
Because here's what I would say. If you were like watching Brock Purdy, and you're like, I'm telling you guys, he could be our starter within a year and a half. You don't play the value game. You just go draft him in the 4th round. You're like, well, you know what? I'm just saying, if you if you really knew, you don't fuck around with that.
But for example, you can never, it's always easy to play that game in any walk of life.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're willing to pay $1 million for a home and in 10 years that home is going to be worth $7 million, Well, you would have found a way if you had to bid against other people to pay $2.5 million, right?
Sure.
But at the time, people would be like, "Are you fucking on crack cocaine? What do you do? You're taking out side loans to get extra. What are you doing?"
But you're not drafting somebody in the 5th round that you love.
No, but the point is, a huge part of a draft is market value. So the reason you had to trade up against Trey, and the reason you wouldn't take Brock Purdy in the 4th is like, hey guys, you, at minimum 6th, right? That's another thing Maria asked. It's just like I didn't understand why would he go in the set? Like, there's nobody, and I'm just like, they're just.
Oh yeah,
it's always easy to play this game after these drafts, but because he's not that tiny. It'd be one thing if like he's 5'9". Well, he didn't play at UC Davis, right?
Somebody made a comment on one of our YouTube videos. I read it this morning. It said, physical traits. How about Bryce Young? Bryce Young's smaller. I was like, that's good.
Way smaller. But the other thing is, like, he played in a conference that I just typed in all Big 12 quarterbacks. Bradford, RG3, obviously Baker Mayfield, Colt McCoy. It's just a conference that produces a lot of NFL players.
Yeah.
Joel Klatt, Cliff Kingsbury,
Brandon Whedon,
Bill Snyder.
Cliff Kings. Oh, you said Cliff. Bill Snyder.
Yeah, he played at Missouri back in 1958.
Seen a lot of ball.
Do you know who I went to dinner the other night? I think the Fiesta Bowl was having some dinner because I saw Sean McDonough.
Oh,
and I was like, Murray, I've talked a lot of shit about that guy back in the day when he was doing Monday Night Football. But then I saw Scott Frost.
Yeah.
And I tried to put the pieces together. Like, what would he have to do with Liberty or Oregon? Do you know?
Well, his brother is the PA announcer at Oregon.
Okay. So maybe he just met up with him. Because there were a bunch of guys in Oregon polos, Liberty. It must have been some kickoff dinner.
Oregon for a minute?
Yeah, a long time under Chip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, his brother's been the PA guy at Oregon for a long time. Or no, PA guy? PA guy.
And then I looked and I tried to see, like, maybe Lanning brought him back as an analyst or something, sent him to this thing, but he didn't. Yeah. I mean, because remember when Nebraska fired him, if they had just waited 2 weeks, they would have saved from like 18 million to 7 million, and they fired him anyway. It's like, God, I forgot about that because I went immediately to his wiki. I'm like, why would he be there?
To give the job to what's his name, Joseph?
Oh yeah, who then beat his wife or whatever.
Yeah, like a week. Oh, I guess it was it that same season?
I think it was right when the season ended, remember?
Super chat from Ivan. We never got that new fiber speed test. What's your internet speeds?
Well, I haven't had them install it yet.
Oh.
Those guys were running the wire. They had to do some digging, and the other guy needs to drill the hole and kind of connect it. So I'm still on technically whatever it is, DSL.
You think Kyle will start calling more touchdown passes to try and help Brock's MVP race? No.
Multiple MVP quarterbacks? To me, Kyle, this season, we'll get into this surely as the playoffs go, but he's like got a moment. Like, is he going to be the Philadelphia Andy Reid here? Or is he just going to be, Sean Payton, Sean McVay, where you just bang that off and then you just get to do whatever you want to do, right? And Jed's going to let him do whether he wins or loses, but I just mean the way he's talked about. Like, I think he's kind of ended it now. No one's questioning the record under 500. Like, all that's in the past now. But eventually, you get so much extra credit. Like, part of, like, everyone watching Sean McVay, like, God, we just talk about it so much different because he has the ring, and then look what he's doing with his team, which is true. Like, how the fuck are they 6-6? Who the fuck is he playing with?
Yep.
Because not everything's going to be this easy.
If Kyle coaches another 20 years, you'd think you're around the ball this much. Eventually, you'll win a championship, but
for sure.
But it feels like he has the chance to win. If he could win multiples, he could be one of the great coaches of his era because he's got all the other stuff that people already think make him a great coach, that I think makes him a great coach, right? His teams play the way he has the temperament, and he's got the offensive genius, just like Bill Walsh was called a genius early. Bill Walsh won a championship like right away.
Yeah.
Drafted Joe Montana. Jerry Rice. So Kyle's got the genius thing without the ring.
Yeah, got to win it. And this season, I mean, by the time we get to the playoffs, assuming they're healthy, I mean, they could be like a 2-1 favorite to win at the start of the playoffs.
I know it feels like the game is what made the 19 season hurt, but that team was so good too. I think not winning a championship this year would be more painful than not winning the championship in 19.
This team is dramatically better than that team, I think.
Yeah.
They have a lot of those players who are better. Fred's better now than he was then. Bosa's better now than he was then. Trent Williams is better than Joe Staley. Quarterback dramatically better. Debo Samuel is, I don't know, Debo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk wasn't even on the team. This version is better than that old version of Emmanuel Sanders. Kittle at worst is every bit as good. They add Chase Young. They add Hargrave. Maybe the D-line is not quite as dominant, but it's not, the gap isn't that wide. Greenlaw's better than their second linebacker then, which might have been him, which was kind of, it was a little different back then. He was not near what he is now. You would say Sherman is better than any DB they have, but the gap between that older version of Sherman and what Ward gives you isn't that far. Sherman was an all-pro that year. I don't think, is Ward going to be an all-pro?
No.
Is he going to be a Pro Bowler?
I don't know. Doesn't matter. I know he's good, right? He's a Pro Bowl level corner.
For sure.
Keith is our best team since 94. And there was one last here. Alien for $5 says, do you think Purdy's changed how scouts view the draft, the QB draft from this point on?
No.
I think it's impossible.
Well, it's like, but what's the takeaway?
Start drafting shorter guys.
But like you said, they just what's his name? What's his name? Got drafted. He's 5'9", a buck. Like they just took Bryce Young, number 1 overall, over CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
Do you know what Steve's numbers were? I guess they only played 16 games, but
Steve who?
Young in 94 when they won the Super Bowl.
I'm gonna say
how many touchdowns do you think he threw? I guess that's the question.
26.
35.
Okay, that's a hell of a year. How many picks?
10.
It's a good year.
I'd say this number is pretty impressive in that level of football where you could die. 70% completion percentage, pretty impressive.
Wow.
70% completion percentage 30 years ago in that league?
Yeah, that's...
And he wasn't just throwing wheel routes.
I will say this about Steve saying that they're pretenders. If they are pretenders, to me, what it means that Jalen Hurts is not going to have an MVP every year type. Like that Jalen, while being their franchise quarterback, won't develop into the like next level can really carry you guy. Now, I'll defend him in that he's not 100% healthy. But, I think that's what that'll end up meaning because they have paid their quarterback. Their defense is not as good. They lost Javon Hargrave, right? Like, I think that's what that'll translate to in like 2 or 3 years. Is this just a down year for them, or are they just in the new era where their quarterback has to play like a $50 million guy?
Well, the dumbest thing, and I refuse to like react to the reaction like a David Carr on Jalen Hurts. Mariota stinks, 1. And 2, Jalen has never been like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady where he's going to throw 30 of 35, right? And just pick you apart. He's much more of an explosive playmaker. And even when we were watching the game, Maria, like early on in the game, was like, I didn't realize he was as good. I'm like, yeah, he's fucking paying him a lot of money because athletically he's good. He keeps plays alive, like that run back. This notion that we talked about, I have a lot of respect for. I think Jalen's pretty solid. Relative. He's not Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, but he's a scary player to play against if their team's playing well. I mean, their defense started getting smoked. I mean, they were right in the game. They obviously the red zone stuff. Like Purdy and him just play different games. I mean, Purdy is an explosive player, but he's much more likely to pick you apart and to have a 22 or 25 stretch where he's just throwing slants and outs and just like fucking ruin you to death. Peyton Manning made a living off it. Or Jalen like can look weird, and all of a sudden they hit like 2 bombs, and it's like, God, they just scored 2 touchdowns.
He just did something nobody else can do. 3 other guys can do.
He does have some physical characteristics, part of the reason what makes him special, but he doesn't turn the ball over that much. That's talking to a buddy with the Eagles earlier this season. He did have a stretch where he threw picks, but they feel pretty good about his decision-making, not throwing it into bad spots.
So if he misses a guy, doesn't see a read, that's not going to end in him throwing in the double coverage.
The other thing with David is like, We see a lot of players who are just overwhelmed. I never watch Jalen. I think sometimes it just doesn't look like he's playing that well, but I never feel like it's just overwhelming for him. I don't know. The way when you say you can't read a defense.
Yeah, but there's a difference between just straight not seeing it. He's got when he doesn't see it, he knows what to do. He's got a move that works, right?
Yeah, he just moves around.
Some guys don't see it. They don't have a move.
I'll tell you. And listen, I'm not trying to be a dick here, but his brother.
Darren?
Not David. Yeah, Derek.
Oh. I didn't watch the Dave video. I just saw it going viral. The one take I had was was his logic not like you just got to get, if you want a shot to win the Super Bowl, you got to get Jalen healthy? Was that his logic? Or was he saying Mariota can win you games?
No, which is a little unfair the way this thing works. It was all about, he started with the rating defenses would pitch everyone off, but the end of the paragraph, I didn't see the audio, I just read the paragraph, was so he could get healthy and then they can make a run.
I don't think it's a crazy take, actually.
The problem is, as you just listed the records, they don't have time. Like, could you rest him in a Giants or Cardinal game? For sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's just, I think, without watching it, like, I just understand, to me, there's the argument to be made. Home field advantage doesn't matter if Jalen Hurts is you're just not going to win the Super Bowl if this guy's not 100%.
Yeah.
Niners just walked into your place and kicked your ass. So you should be more worried about health than home field. If that's his argument, that's not crazy.
That also assumes does a week off change his health?
Yeah, that's a good point. May not. I did see watching Mariota run the tush push. I'm like, oh, maybe they don't need outlaw it.
He got it though.
Yeah, but it was not the same as when Hurts runs it.
When Hurts run it, whoever's on top goes like this with the offensive line. Like the linebacker always jumps, and then he just moves with the group every time. It's like, what? How is this? I still don't quite get it, but the guy moves.
Just
they
like
get it.
Crowd surfing.
I feel like they get 2 yards, don't you, when Jalen's in it?
The touchdown they scored against the Niners was like 4. And they only needed 1. All right.
You easily could run that play. It'd probably hurt. You couldn't do it physically on the guys over and over.
Could you get 4 yards of carry? Like after time just wearing down the defensive line?
But would it wear down your offensive line too?
100%. But I just think like I have thought like, could you run that 17 times a game?
I've never seen it not even get like remotely shoved the other way. It feels like the minimum they've advanced would be like a 4.5 yards.
I don't even think they need a measurement ever.
Not even close. There is just the defense never even asks. Do you notice that? When you watch them, a lot of times, you do this and they stop. The defense just, a lot of guys look to the sideline like, hey, can I get a breather?
Yeah, no one's putting their fist up saying 4th down. Anyway.
Yeah. I listen, Mariota, great guy. Don't think he's a very good player.
He lost the mojo too.
Yeah. I also think there's probably an element here with the Carr family, worked with Derek. They probably really like him. It's, there's a little agenda. I don't see him saying like, we need to put Jameis in the game.
That's funny.
I'm sorry. Jalen's earned the right, I'd say, to no one fucking calling for his job, no matter how stupid
Yeah. All right. On that note, Ohtani.
To LA.